Let me tell you something today, and I want every woman listening to hear this in her soul. There is a type of woman this world desperately needs. Not just beautiful, not just educated, not just successful, but a woman who knows her worth so deeply she becomes unforgettable. This woman, she doesn't chase, she doesn't beg for attention, she doesn't lower her standards just to feel loved, because she understands she is this. She walks into a room and changes the energy, not because of what she wears, but because of the aura she carries. Her silence speaks louder than most people's noise. Her peace is non-negotiable. She is grounded, emotionally intelligent, spiritually aligned. She's done the work. She's healed what broke her. She's not bitter, she's better. Men need this woman, not the one who conforms, not the one who plays games, but the one who reflects truth. The one who holds a mirror up to a man's soul and says, I won't let you be less than what you're capable of. She inspires, not by controlling, not by pleasing, but by being so real that people have no choice but to level up around her. She doesn't entertain boys, she attracts men. Men with vision, men with values, men with purpose, because her presence demands it. And the reason this type of woman is so rare, because becoming her requires solitude, discipline, boundaries, and pain. Yes, pain that she turned into power. So to every woman listening, stop trying to be liked. Stop trying to fit in. Be her. Be the woman who brings peace, not drama, depth, not confusion, value, not validation seeking. Because that woman, she doesn't just turn heads, she builds empires. A woman who knows her worth does not enter the world asking for permission to be seen. She doesn't seek validation from those who can't even recognize the gold in her spirit. She walks into spaces not needing to prove who she is, because her presence says it for her. She understands that her value is not tied to how much attention she receives, how many compliments she gets, or how many people approve of her. She knows her value lies in her essence, and that alone is untouchable. She has learned through heartbreak, disappointment, and isolation that self-worth is not gifted, it is built slowly, brick by brick, through years of unlearning what the world taught her about who she needed to be in order to be enough. She's cried in silence and still showed up the next day with grace. She's had moments where she questioned her beauty, her strength, her purpose, but she never gave up on herself. And that's why she's unshakable now. This woman has walked away from what doesn't align, not because she didn't care, but because she finally learned to care about herself more. She stopped tolerating half-baked love, mixed signals, and empty words. She no longer finds excitement in potential. She no longer tries to fix what's broken in others at the expense of breaking herself. She has stepped into a season of her life where she values her peace over the thrill of being chosen, because she knows now she doesn't need to be chosen. She chooses herself. When she walks into a relationship, she brings depth, clarity, and maturity. She doesn't play games. She doesn't operate from insecurity. She's not here to compete with other women, compare herself to someone else, or try to be who she's not. Her self-awareness is her crown. She is deeply rooted in who she is, and that grounding cannot be shaken by shallow love or temporary admiration. She doesn't get distracted by noise. She's too focused on alignment. She's not cold. She's not detached. She loves deeply, fiercely, and with full presence. But she loves from overflow, not from emptiness. That's the difference. She's not loving to fill a void. She's loving to share what she's already cultivated within. Her love heals, nurtures, and uplifts. And it's only available to those who meet her in that same energy, because she refuses to pour into anything that doesn't pour back. You see, the reason she's irreplaceable is not just because of what she gives, it's because of what she no longer tolerates. She knows her energy is sacred, her time is valuable, her emotional labor is not owed to anyone. She has boundaries and they're not negotiable. She doesn't explain them to make others comfortable. She enforces them to honor herself. She's not impressed by material things. She doesn't fall for charm without character. She has vision, she has purpose, and if someone can't meet her there, she's not afraid to keep walking alone, because she would rather be in solitude with her dignity intact than in a relationship that demands her to shrink to fit in. She doesn't get jealous when others get attention. She claps for women who shine because she's not threatened by their light. She knows she carries her own. She doesn't base her self-esteem on likes, followers, or who notices her. She's built her confidence on a foundation that no one can take away because it's rooted in truth, her journey, her healing. The world may try to label her as too much, too intimidating, too serious, but those labels don't affect her because she knows they're not a reflection of her. They're a reflection of what others cannot handle. She understands that when you carry high value, you won't be for everyone, and she's perfectly okay with that. She's not trying to be for everyone, she's for those who see her. Not just the surface, but the soul. There's a calmness in her that can't be faked, a strength that doesn't need to shout. She doesn't react to every slight, every disrespect, every petty comment. She chooses her battles wisely. She's not here to prove anything to anyone who already made up their mind about her. She lets her actions speak. And more often than not, her silence speaks even louder. Her worth is not rooted in being desired. It's rooted in knowing she's deserving of love that's consistent, words that are backed by action, and connections that nourish, not drain. She doesn't play the role of the cool girl just to be liked. She doesn't shrink her standards to make others feel more comfortable. She is soft, yes, but her softness is not weakness. It is the product of strength refined through fire. She's not afraid of outgrowing people. She's not afraid of being misunderstood. She's not afraid of starting over because she knows nothing valuable ever comes from staying in spaces where you have to constantly question your worth. She doesn't chase, she attracts. She doesn't beg, she embodies. Her energy alone filters out what's not for her. And when people lose her, they feel it. Not because she made them dependent on her, but because they realized too late she was the rare kind, the one who would have stood by them, lifted them, poured into them had they respected her. But once she walks away, there is no return. She doesn't believe in giving repeated access to someone who mishandled her once she gave them her trust. She is not bitter, she is better. She doesn't hold grudges, but she remembers the lessons. She moves in wisdom now, not just love. She's seen what happens when she gives too much to people who offer too little. So now she moves with intention, with discernment, with grace. She's building something bigger than herself. Her energy goes into growth, into purpose, into legacy. She's not waiting to be saved. She's saving herself daily. She's not lost in fantasies, she's rooted in reality, and in that groundedness, she's creating a life that reflects her worth. She doesn't dress for attention, she doesn't speak for applause, she doesn't live for validation. Everything she does flows from alignment. She knows who she is, she knows what she brings to the table. This kind of woman is not created overnight. She is the product of battles no one saw, nights spent alone in prayer and self-reflection, moments where she had to break her own heart just to protect her soul. She's been through fire, but it didn't consume her. It refined her. And now she carries a quiet power that can't be explained, only experienced. Her worth doesn't make her arrogant. It makes her secure. It makes her selective. It makes her walk away when peace is disturbed. It makes her say no, not out of pride, but out of self-respect. And that's why she's so rare, so powerful, so unforgettable. The world may try to convince her to lower her standards, to settle, to silence her voice, but she won't, because she knows once a woman realizes her worth, she becomes unshakable. She becomes the kind of woman who doesn't just live. She leads. She influences not by force, but by presence, not by shouting, but by showing. She is the example of what it means to be whole before being chosen. And because she is whole, she cannot be replaced. There's a woman who enters your life not through noise, but through presence. She doesn't demand attention. She doesn't try to prove her worth. And yet, when she walks in, something shifts. It's not her looks that captivate, though she carries herself with undeniable grace. It's not her words, though when she speaks, people listen. It's her energy, calm, grounded, wise. She carries a kind of strength that cannot be seen, only felt. And what makes her so magnetic is not her charm or beauty, it's her emotional and spiritual intelligence. This woman is deeply connected to herself. She knows how she feels, and more importantly, why she feels it. She doesn't run from her emotions, she sits with them, she honors them. She knows how to process pain without projecting it. She has learned that healing doesn't come from avoiding discomfort, but from walking through it with courage. She's had to face her own shadows and clean the parts of her soul she once hid. She's had to look in the mirror and say, I will not pass my wounds onto the people I love. And because she's done that inner work, she loves from a place of clarity, not chaos. She doesn't get emotionally reactive because she's mastered the art of response over reaction. She's not the kind of woman who will lash out just to feel heard. She doesn't use silence to punish or words to manipulate. When something bothers her, she communicates not to blame, but to understand. Her intelligence isn't just about being smart, it's about being wise. She knows that emotional maturity is not about suppressing feelings, but channeling them in a way that builds, not breaks. This woman isn't ruled by insecurity. She doesn't need constant reassurance because she knows how to affirm herself. She doesn't need someone to complete her because she's already whole. That wholeness is what makes her so powerful. You can't control her through attention. You can't manipulate her with fear, and you can't impress her with surface level charm. She sees through it. She sees people for who they are, not who they pretend to be. Her discernment is her shield. She doesn't just hear words, she feels energy. Spiritual intelligence makes her even more captivating. She's not just aware of herself, she's connected to something greater. She lives with purpose. She speaks with intention. She walks with alignment. Her decisions are not impulsive, they're guided. She's deeply rooted in faith, and that faith is what carries her through storms with peace. She doesn't panic when life shifts because she trusts the process. She understands divine timing. She believes that what is meant for her will never require her to chase, beg, or break herself. There is a quiet confidence in her that cannot be imitated. She knows who she is, even when others misunderstand her. She doesn't shrink in the face of conflict, but she doesn't escalate it either. She navigates difficult conversations with grace. She listens, not to reply, but to understand. She holds space for others to feel safe in their truth, even when that truth is messy. She doesn't shame vulnerability, she honors it. And that's why people feel drawn to her even when they can't explain it. She doesn't need to win arguments. She doesn't speak to dominate, she speaks to connect. Her tone isn't sharp, but it's steady. She's not passive, but she's never aggressive. She's assertive because she knows her voice matters. But she also knows when silence says more. She's mastered the art of knowing when to fight and when to walk away. And she's not afraid to walk away from anything that threatens her peace. She is emotionally generous, but not emotionally reckless. She doesn't offer her energy to everyone because she knows not everyone is worthy of it. She protects her peace not out of fear, but out of wisdom. She's learned that her emotional availability is a gift, not something to be handed out without care. She is open-hearted, but guarded with intention. Not because she's cold, but because she knows the cost of giving too much to people who give too little in return. This woman doesn't hold on to resentment. She knows how to forgive, not because others always deserve it, but because she deserves peace. She doesn't allow bitterness to take root in her heart. She knows that when you hold on to pain, it poisons your spirit. So she releases, not because it's easy, but because she values freedom over ego. She chooses healing even when revenge would feel better, because her spirit is more important than her pride. She doesn't idolize love. She respects it, honors it, but she doesn't lose herself in it. She loves deeply, but she never forgets herself in the process. And that's what makes her so different. So many chase love at the expense of self-respect. She won't. She understands that real love doesn't ask you to betray your truth. Real love doesn't confuse, it clarifies. It doesn't drain, it energizes, and she holds out for that. Not because she's picky, but because she's awakened. Her standards aren't a defense mechanism. They are the reflection of a woman who has finally learned to love herself well. She will not entertain chaos disguised as passion. She will not participate in emotionally immature games. She will not tolerate being treated like an option. And because she carries this level of clarity, she attracts people who are equally self-aware, or at least those who want to become better. There is a softness in her that feels like home, but don't mistake her softness for weakness. She has boundaries like steel. She's been through enough to know that kindness without limits invites harm. So now her love is not just powerful, it's protected. She doesn't need everyone to like her. She doesn't fear being alone. Her solitude is sacred, and she's comfortable in it. She knows who she is when no one is watching, and that's what makes her unshakable when the world starts watching. People feel different around her, not because she's trying to impress, but because she's present fully. When she speaks to you, she listens with her soul. She makes you feel seen, not just heard. And it's not because she needs anything in return. It's because she operates from a space of emotional wealth. She gives without expecting because she doesn't move in lack, she moves in abundance. She honors her emotions without letting them control her. She has felt grief and joy in the same breath. She has been broken and still showed up for others. She has had moments where her world fell apart and still that's what makes her different. Her resilience is wrapped in softness. Her intelligence is cloaked in humility, and her spirit radiates a frequency that words can never describe. She understands that everything is energy. She trusts her intuition. She's not swayed by appearances. She feels deeper. She knows when something is off. Even when everything looks perfect on the surface, she can walk into a room and feel the undercurrent of energy because her spiritual radar is tuned. She has learned to trust that. She no longer ignores her gut for the sake of keeping the peace. She is the peace, and she protects it fiercely. She's not chasing highs. She's building harmony. She doesn't live for adrenaline. She lives for alignment. She doesn't need drama to feel alive. She needs presence, intention, truth. That's where she thrives. That's where she becomes most magnetic, when she is fully in her power, not trying to perform for anyone. And in a world full of distractions, noise, and confusion, this kind of woman stands out. Not because she tries to, but because she's rare. She is rare because she's real. She is rare because she's awake. She is rare because she has chosen the harder path of inner evolution. And because of that, when you meet her, you don't forget her. Her beauty isn't just in her face, it's in her spirit. It's in the way she holds space for herself. It's in the way she carries her pain with grace and turns her wounds into wisdom. It's in the way she rises after breaking, not bitter, but better. And when you speak to her, you don't just hear words, you feel depth. You feel understanding. You feel that she's not just a woman. You're speaking to a soul that's been refined by fire and softened by love. This is the kind of woman who changes lives. Not because she tries to fix people, but because her presence invites healing. Her energy calms the storm. Her words bring clarity, and her silence speaks volumes. She is magnetic, not because she seeks attention, but because she's aligned, emotionally, spiritually, fully. And once you've encountered a woman like this, you'll always remember how she made you feel safe, seen, centered, because that's what happens when you meet someone who has done the inner work. They don't just show up in your life, they shift it. There's a certain kind of woman who doesn't need to demand respect. It's simply given, not because she asks for it, not because she forces it, but because when she enters a man's life, something shifts. Her presence isn't loud, but it is loudly felt. She doesn't just walk beside someone, she elevates them. She awakens a deeper part of them, a part they may have forgotten existed. And what makes her unforgettable isn't how she looks or what she says, it's how she makes a man feel about himself. In her presence, a man is no longer content with mediocrity. In her presence, he sees what he could become. She is the mirror that doesn't flatter but reflects truth. She's not impressed by image, status, or charm. She sees through it all. She notices the man behind the mask, the one hiding behind distractions, ego, and excuses, and she doesn't attack or judge that man. She simply refuses to accept anything less than the best version of him. And that in itself is a challenge most men are not used to facing, because this woman cannot be impressed by who you pretend to be. She wants to see your core. She wants to know if you're leading with integrity, purpose, and consistency. She is not a woman you can play with, not because she's cold, but because she's conscious. She values emotional depth, honesty, and character. She has vision, and she wants a man who has one too. She will not tolerate emotional laziness, spiritual apathy, or moral confusion. If you're around her, you'll feel a quiet pressure to do better, not because she asks, but because her energy requires it. She won't tell you to rise. Her presence makes you want to. She doesn't need a savior. She doesn't want to be worshipped. She desires partnership, but not any kind. She wants something real, something rooted, something rare. She's walked away from situations where she wasn't seen or valued properly, and she won't hesitate to do it again. She's not afraid to be alone because she's not looking for someone to fill her. She's already full. She's looking for someone to grow with, build with, walk with, not just someone to keep her company. And so her presence becomes a filter. She's not for the weak-hearted or the easily intimidated. She's not for the man who's still playing games or hiding from himself. She's for the man who's ready to rise, ready to evolve, ready to be held accountable, not by force, but by love. Because the way she loves, it's not about convenience, it's about growth. Her love pushes you, her silence teaches you, her boundaries protect you from yourself. When you're in her space, you start to feel the parts of yourself that you've neglected, your purpose, your potential, your power. She sees it even when you don't. And the moment you feel that, there's no going back to the man you were before, because once you've been seen on that level, surface level living becomes unbearable. She doesn't criticize, but she also doesn't settle. She gives you room to breathe, but she won't stay where there's no evolution. She'll support you, yes, but not at the cost of her own peace. She's not the woman who will chase you, fix you, or try to convince you of her worth. She knows what she brings, and she also knows if you're not ready, she will leave. Not with bitterness, not with anger, but with the clarity of someone who refuses to water herself down for the sake of being understood. Her standard is not just about external things. It's not about what you do. It's about who you are. Your discipline, your emotional availability, your truth. She pays attention to how you speak when you're angry, how you treat people who can't offer you anything, how you lead yourself when no one is watching. These are the things that matter to her, because she knows that love without character is temporary, that connection without depth is fragile. She knows what's real, and that's what she gives and expects. Being with her is a responsibility, not a burden, but a calling, because her presence invites the man in front of her to meet the man within him. And that kind of awakening is not always comfortable, but it's necessary. She'll never belittle you, but she will challenge your patterns. She'll never shame you, but she will question your intentions. She'll never control you, but she will hold you to your word. And in a world where it's easy to hide behind charm and confidence, her clarity becomes a force you can't ignore. You can't manipulate her with emotions. You can't impress her with empty promises. You can't distract her with attention. She's beyond that. She sees value in consistency, in emotional responsibility, in aligned action. If you're saying one thing and doing another, she notices. If your words sound right but your energy is off, she feels it. If you're performing more than you're being, she pulls back. And when she does, it hurts. Not because she punishes you, but because you realize how rare her presence was, how much light she brought, how much she saw in you even when you didn't. And you realize you didn't just lose a woman, you lost a mirror, a guide, a silent force that was calling you to your highest self. This is why her presence is unforgettable, because she doesn't just pass through your life, she leaves something behind, a seed, a spark, a reminder of who you're capable of becoming. Even if you weren't ready when she was there, she planted something. And one day, when you've grown enough to recognize it, you'll remember her not with regret, but with reverence, because she was never just a woman, she was a standard. And that standard remains. Whether you rise to meet it or not is up to you. But once you've seen it, you can't go back to pretending you don't know what real connection looks like. You can't go back to shallow distractions. You can't go back to half-effort love, because she showed you what alignment feels like, what clarity feels like, what truth feels like. And that kind of knowing stays with you forever. She's not here to rescue, not here to fix, not here to tolerate what drains her. She is here to walk with someone who matches her energy, someone who respects her mind, values her peace, and honors her growth, someone who isn't afraid to be called higher, because she is not interested in staying stagnant. She's building, she's evolving, she's living with intention, and if you can't match her pace, you'll lose her. Not because she stopped loving, but because she started choosing herself. Because she knows if she lowers her standards, she betrays her own journey, and she's come too far for that. So when you meet a woman like this, understand what's in front of you. She is not a distraction. She is not a placeholder. She is not entertainment. She is an awakening. She's the invitation to rise into everything you were created to be. She is the test and the reward. And whether you pass that test depends not on your charm, your looks, or your words, but on your willingness to grow, to evolve, to show up fully. Because the only way to keep her is to become the man you were always meant to be. And when you do that, not for her, but for yourself, then and only then you will understand what it means to be in the presence of a woman who doesn't just inspire, but transforms. She's not the kind of woman who waits for life to be easy. She doesn't sit around hoping things will change or praying that someone will come and save her. She doesn't rely on distractions to escape the discomfort of her own reality. Instead, she chooses the path that few dare to walk, the path of growth, no matter how uncomfortable it gets. And that's what makes her so rare, because most people chase comfort. Most people want ease. They want certainty, familiarity, and the safety of staying the same, but not her. She understands that true transformation lives beyond the edges of comfort, that the person she's becoming requires her to leave behind the patterns, beliefs, and even people who no longer serve her. She knows that the cost of comfort is often her own evolution, and she refuses to pay that price. She chooses growth, even when it breaks her, even when it strips her of everything she thought she needed, even when it forces her to walk alone, because she knows there is no peace in pretending, no joy in staying small, no fulfillment in hiding from your purpose. And she's done hiding, she's done shrinking, she's done being who the world expects her to be just to keep the peace. She's decided that she would rather be uncomfortable and growing than comfortable and lost. That she would rather face the pain of truth than the numbness of denial. That she would rather feel every part of her breaking than live a life that doesn't reflect who she truly is. And that choice, that sacred, terrifying, soul-defining choice, is what separates her from the rest. This woman doesn't avoid her shadows. She meets them. She sits with her fears, her trauma, her patterns, and she doesn't flinch. She studies them, she learns from them, she lets them teach her where she still needs to heal, where she still needs to forgive, where she still needs to reclaim her power. She doesn't distract herself with constant noise. She doesn't run from solitude, she leans into it, because she knows that healing doesn't happen when you avoid your pain, it happens when you understand it. She has cried in silence when no one saw her. She has rebuilt herself in darkness, one decision at a time. She has had moments where she questioned everything, her worth, her path, her strength, and yet every single time she chose to keep going. She chose growth, not because it was easier, but because her soul demanded it, because she knew deep down what's on the other side of this pain is freedom. She doesn't settle, not in love, not in life, not in how she's treated, not because she thinks she's better than others, but because she refuses to betray herself. She knows what she deserves. She knows how hard she's worked to get here. She knows the nights she's spent unraveling the lies she once believed. And because of that, she can no longer pretend that almost is enough. She can no longer stay in spaces that don't reflect the woman she's becoming. She chooses growth even when it costs her connection, because she knows some relationships were only meant to last at the level she was operating on before. And now that she's rising, some people will fall away, and she lets them. She doesn't cling, she doesn't beg, she honors the ending, because she knows that not everyone is meant to walk with her into her next chapter. And that's okay. She doesn't hold resentment. She lets go with grace. She honors what was, and she blesses what's to come. Because she trusts the process. She trusts that whatever is aligned with her growth will stay, and whatever isn't will fall away. She has stopped fighting for things that keep her stagnant. She has stopped trying to make herself small just to be accepted. She no longer performs for validation. Her worth is not dependent on how well she pleases others. Her worth is rooted in how deeply she's learned to love and respect herself. She's rare because she's not afraid to begin again. She has lost, failed, fallen, and still she rises, not with bitterness, but with more clarity, with more intention, with more conviction in who she is. She has learned to see failure as feedback, pain as a teacher, endings as redirection. And because of that, she no longer fears change. She invites it. She knows that change is proof that she's alive, evolving, expanding, and she welcomes it. Even when it's uncomfortable, she's the kind of woman who doesn't just talk about growth, she embodies it. She invests in her mind. She nourishes her soul. She prioritizes her peace. She asks hard questions. She faces hard truths. She breaks cycles, not just for herself, but for the generations that will come after her. Because her growth is not selfish. It's sacred. It's legacy building. It's revolutionary. She's done playing roles. She's done pretending she's okay when she's not. She's done dimming her light to make others feel comfortable. She's done carrying the weight of other people's expectations. She's done over-explaining her worth. Now she simply lives it. She shows up as she is, unapologetic, authentic, grounded. And that energy, it's magnetic, it's powerful, it's unforgettable. Because growth has made her soft but not weak, kind but not naive, loving but not dependent, open but not desperate. Her strength is quiet, her power is steady. She doesn't need to prove anything. Her life speaks for itself. She has become the woman who can hold herself, who can validate her own emotions, who can witness her own transformation and say, yes, this is who I was always meant to be. She doesn't need chaos to feel alive. She doesn't need noise to feel important. She has found beauty in stillness, strength in solitude, wisdom in silence. She knows herself deeply, and that knowing guides everything she does. She doesn't rush, she doesn't chase, she moves with intention. And because she's no longer tied to the version of herself that lived for approval, she's free. Free to say no without guilt, free to walk away from what drains her, free to follow the voice of her soul even when the world doesn't understand. She's not afraid to outgrow people, places, and even parts of herself. She knows that growth often feels like loss, but she also knows that loss is the clearing for something greater. So she sheds, she releases, she evolves over and over again, not because she's broken, but because she's becoming. She's rare because she isn't chasing perfection, she's chasing realness. She's not trying to be better than anyone else, she's trying to be better than who she was yesterday. And that inner competition, that quiet striving, that sacred discipline, it's what makes her different, it's what makes her magnetic, it's what makes her unstoppable. And the truth is, most people won't understand her, because most people haven't chosen what she's chosen. They haven't sat in their discomfort long enough to learn from it. They haven't let go of comfort long enough to taste freedom. They haven't walked through fire just to meet themselves, but she has. And because of that, she carries a light that cannot be faked. She's not perfect, she's human. She still doubts, still fears, still breaks, but she keeps going because the life she wants, the woman she's becoming, the peace she's creating, it's worth it. Every tear, every decision, every goodbye, every lonely night, every uncomfortable conversation, it's all worth it because she knows calm can't offer her this. Calm keeps you stuck. Growth sets you free. And she didn't come here to play small. She came here to rise.